Hi, and welcome to another edition of All Politics is Local. I'm Jon Fetherston, and on tonight's program, we have a very special guest running for Massachusetts State Senate, Margaret Busse. Hi, Margaret.
Hi.
Thanks for taking the time to join us here on All Politics is Local.
It's great to be here.
Well, it's an honor to have you here. Let's talk a little bit about, here you are, you're going to run for Massachusetts State Senate. You're going to run against the seat currently held by Jamie Eldridge. Why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and how you got to reach this decision to be running for State Senate?
Sure, love to. Thank you. So I became very interested in how to make a positive impact in people's lives when I was in college. I became interested in how government can do that and also how other organizations can do that. I majored in economics and public policy. Because I was really interested in that, I went to work for the U.S. Treasury Department after I graduated college, and in that capacity actually helped organizations around the country that were in the business of helping others. So we were making loans, low interest loans and grants to these types of organizations. Really enjoyed that kind of work. But what I realized in doing that is that in order to be more effective at that, I needed to have more training in basic things like finance and marketing and strategy and those types of things. At that point, I decided to get an MBA, which was actually never in my plan. And that's when I moved to Massachusetts. I moved to Massachusetts almost 19 years ago.
Wow.
To come to Harvard Business School. And loved it, had a fantastic experience, and also really fell in love with Massachusetts as a state. I learned a lot about how to solve problems, not just the finance, what I didn't know that I was going to learn. I knew I was going to learn about finance and marketing and strategy. What I didn't know I was going to learn is really how to look at a problem holistically and try to solve it, try to get something done, right? And I think that skill is what's so important in trying to make an impact in people's lives, whether it's government, whether it's organization, whether it's business, whatever it is.
I wish more people in government would do that,
I absolutely agree. And in fact, the place that I work now, Harvard Business School's Social Enterprise Initiative, is actually trying to do that, trying to figure out how to apply business management principles to the nonprofit sector, to the public sector. So we're looking at that. We think about that. So I went to business school, loved that, decided to stay in Massachusetts, got married here, have a family here, have 5 kids. I worked right after graduating business school, I worked for a nonprofit strategy consultancy called the Bridgespan Group, where we helped nonprofit organizations refine their strategies so they could have a bigger impact on people. Loved that work, got exposure to lots of different organizations and lots of different ways to make impact. And then I spent some time at home, actually quite a bit of time at home because I had 5 children and had young kids at home and wanted to be there for them. But in the process of that, wanted to have some kind of impact on my local community. Moved to Acton about a little over 10 years ago, about 10 and a half years ago, and really just fell in love with the town. Loved being in the town, loved being part of the community, loved the people I was meeting, felt very comfortable there, and so wanted to make a difference in some way there. So I got involved first on the planning board and spent 4 years on the planning board, and then also chaired a committee which we called the Acton 2020 Committee, which was tasked with basically providing a comprehensive plan for the town of Acton, sort of looking 10 to 15 years out.
Okay, great.
Love that experience. We did an unprecedented amount of outreach in that exercise because my highest priority was to get as diverse of input as we possibly could into the process, into the plan, so that we could sort of figure out what is the common ground that we have and how do we move forward with that common ground. And because of that, we had the most well-respected, robust community plan that we'd ever seen because people had ownership, people had an opportunity to contribute. I love that process. I then shifted gears and spent 4 years on our town's finance committee, which was a very different role. Ended up chairing that committee also, and in that role really played a key position in negotiating our budgets, both on the municipal side and on the school side. Now, people move to Acton like they do in many of the communities in the Senate District for 3 words, for the schools, right? So we wanted to make sure that we were delivering, very good educational services, very good municipal services, but for a good value. So trying to put some downward pressure on the tax rate while making sure that we were delivering those services well. Working well, across the political spectrum with
Right.
folks that were, the selectmen, the school committee, to get that done. Really enjoyed that. So that's a little bit about my background, my history. The reason I'm really, stepping forward now to run for state senate is really that, I think as a lot of people feel right now, our current political environment feels very toxic.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels very divisive. And I think people are just finally getting weary of this. I'm weary of it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired of it. I don't like the tactics that politicians use. I don't like the fact that people always have to be super inflammatory to get attention, to get voters. I don't like that. And so, for me, my response to that is, I'm gonna put myself out there. I'm gonna run for office. I care about this country. I care about this state. I think the United States of America has been a beacon of hope to other nations. We want to make sure that we retain that. I think the state of Massachusetts has similarly been the same way. We are a leader in many different ways, in education and the first in so many different things. We want to make sure that we stay that way and don't devolve into something different. So that's kind of my reasoning, I guess, for stepping
Wow.
forward now, and a little bit about my background.
Let's recap, because I'm kind of excited here. I mean, you've got your master's from Harvard. You work at Harvard Business School. You've been on the planning board, finance committee. I mean, so vehemently qualified to be running for Massachusetts State Senate. So what is it about the Massachusetts State Senate that you want to go up there and change? I mean,
So there's a few things that I think are important here. So I think that, if you sort of live in my district, which is 14 communities, basically from Acton all the way down to Westboro, Southboro, you realize that what people really care about are three things. Making sure that we have access to good jobs with good pay, making sure that our kids are getting a great education, and making sure that our communities stay vibrant and safe. Those are the things that people want. That's why people move to this district. That's what they want. I think what's happening at the State House, particularly the current senator of this district, are things that people are not really engaged in, don't really care about, or if they do, they're not really in agreement with it. So we have a situation where, our state senator currently is promoting things that I think are out of step with the district. Things like government-run health care, which frankly I think is just fiscally irresponsible. It's just not something that we can support as taxpayers, and frankly I think it will give us worse outcomes. Things like free college tuition for almost everyone. Where do we get the money to pay for that? Things like that I just don't think are common sense. I don't think that's what the voters in this district are focused on.
Okay.
I think they want jobs, schools, communities. Those are the three things that I think that voters in this district are interested in, that they care about. I want to represent them.
okay. So what sets you apart from your candidate, who is Senator Eldridge? How would you say that you're different than him?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, I think really both in style and substance.
Okay.
So again, on the substance, I feel like I want to be focused on things that make a lot of sense, make common sense. Things that will bring better jobs, things that will make sure our schools stay strong, things that will make sure our community stays strong and vibrant and safe. I think, again, our current state senator, as I've mentioned already, the government-run health care, the tuition for everyone. I think there's also things like going so soft on crime that just doesn't make sense. So in the recent Criminal Justice Reform Act that was passed a few months ago, Senator Eldridge actually supported an amendment, which fortunately did not pass, that would basically have eliminated the mandatory sentences for drug dealers who deal the hardest drugs, like heroin, like cocaine, who deal those drugs either to children or use children to deal those drugs, which honestly, I can't tell which is worse. You know?
Right, yeah.
They both are just abhorrent.
Anytime you use the word drugs in children,
It's awful. And you know,
awful.
in the current, we have a huge opioid crisis right now, obviously, in the state. To go soft on a criminal that's doing that sort of thing, it just doesn't make sense. It's not common sense. So it's things like that, I think. It's also, you know, his support of the sanctuary state idea.
I was going to ask you about that.
That to me just doesn't make sense. Why would we want to handicap our law enforcement officers to do their job?
Right.
It just doesn't make sense. So I think on the substance, I differ. I think on the style, I differ.
Okay.
I think right now we have a state senator who really stakes out, you know, in my view, very extreme positions, and then sort of stays there. He's not looking to bring in a diverse set of opinions, find the common ground, and move forward. And that, to me, is what's important to me. It's important to me to bring people together. And maybe that sounds cliche, but I believe it deeply, deeply.
Let me ask you a little bit, because I think you brought up a good subject, and anybody who watches this program consistently knows where I come down on the opiate crisis. But I also want to talk about marijuana. Senator Eldridge was very supportive of legalizing recreational marijuana. Just so you understand where I'm coming from and where the question might be framed. So, I'm against the recreational marijuana, but I'm for the will of the people. The will of the people voted for recreational marijuana here in Massachusetts. But I think if you voted for it, you're not getting what you voted for. And more importantly, I think if you voted against it, you're not getting what you voted against. It's a different law that the government has changed. Real quick, do you have any thoughts on recreational marijuana and any concerns?
Sure, yeah. First of all, I did not support it. I did not vote for it. I don't think it's a good idea. Interestingly, many friends of mine who did vote for recreational marijuana, I think actually didn't fully understand the implications, and they will admit that now. They thought that what they were voting for was, I just don't want someone to go to jail for smoking marijuana, which I think is a reasonable thing, versus full commercialization of marijuana. So I think what's happened is a lot of communities have sort of woken up to this reality. I'm glad that the legislature and the governor have given communities the opportunity to sort of determine their own destiny when it comes to this, to the extent that they can. There's different rules for different communities depending on how you voted on the ballot initiative. We've seen that here in where I live in Acton. There's been a big movement to not allow marijuana commercialization in our town. And I hope that that comes to pass in our town. But I think what's even more important is making sure that communities really have the ability to determine their own destiny here, because it's a new experiment. We don't really know what's going to happen. A lot of people don't want their kids to have access to this type of thing, especially when it's marketed in ways that are like brownies and candy and this kind of form that can really fool a kid very easily.
And
maybe
that's
even
my
an
biggest
adult.
concern, is the edibles. The edibles is, the scary piece. I understand, and I think we're all realistic enough. Okay, if you want to do it in the safety of your own home, just like anything, do it in the safety of your own home. But when you're marketing it to children to get them hooked to it, it is deeply concerning to me. Real quick about the opiate crisis. Roughly about 6 people a day die in Massachusetts from the opiate crisis, unfortunately. And I often talk about, the deaths get the headlines, but the real destruction is the families, the friends, your coworkers, because unfortunately somebody's, doing an opiate in a break room right now that we're talking about, or somebody's fighting over the dinner table because somebody's addicted to the opiates. What do you think? It's the biggest public health crisis we've had in this nation in a long time.
It really is. And it is such an infuriating thing, because I really do feel like certain doctors and certain pharmaceutical companies really should be held to blame here. And maybe someone didn't start out trying to addict people and trying to cause this crisis, but as soon as it was known that this is what was happening, somebody needed to take a stand and say, we have to stop this, and stop with trying to use it, to gain profit when people are dying because of this addiction. I mean, it is truly astonishing how much this has grown in our state, in our country, with different newfangled opioids that are out there. I don't know if it has to be just a massive public information push, massive amounts of, way more treatment options, and punishing the people that are selling it.
Right.
And that goes along with drug dealers, and it goes along with doctors, and any type of entity that is trying to sell this for a profit illegally. We've got to come down strong on this. It's horrifying, and I know people too that have been affected by this deeply in their families, and it's really awful to see.
Yeah, unfortunately, everybody watching this program knows somebody,
Yeah,
unfortunately,
it's that common.
who is
It really
common.
is.
So earlier you mentioned how you differentiate from your opponent, Senator Eldridge, difference in style. Let's talk a little bit about that. What are your thoughts on, what is different about your style? And I'll hit you with a couple follow-up questions. But.
Sure. Yeah, again, I really have, my style has always been one that's very inclusive, very collaborative. I like to get lots of different opinions from lots of different people. I like to listen to what people have to say, learn about things, and then be able to make a decision that really is a decision that reflects all of that input and not just sort of be an ideologue about certain things. I think my opponent is much more of an ideologue on his philosophies. So that's where I see my sort of difference in style.
So you've been questioned before on, some of your stances. Anybody who's served in the public eye like you have definitely been questioned, in the past. But, specifically, you've been challenged about your stance on same-sex marriage. Would you like to comment on that?
Sure, yes. So over a decade ago, I was involved in some activities that were promoting and advocating for traditional marriage.
Okay.
Since then, it's been a really long time since then, and I think the nation has changed a lot on this issue, and we've all changed a lot on this issue. And the law now is in favor of same-sex marriage, and I support the law.
Okay.
And here's the thing. I think that issue, the issue around marriage, has been a very divisive one, and that's what's sad to me. Because again, I'm really interested in trying to bring people together. Again, I know that sounds cliche. That sounds cliche because a lot of people say it. This is something I believe deeply, and I want to make sure that I do. And I feel like I have a strong track record of bringing people together, seeking that diverse input, bringing people together, finding the common ground, moving forward in my own town. And as I think about, sort of when I am representing the people of the Middlesex-Worcester district, I want to represent everyone. I don't want to think about people divided into little groups. I don't want to think, I'm only representing one community. I want to represent, blacks and whites and Hispanics and Asians and gays and straights and Catholics and Protestants and Muslims and Hindus and across the spectrum. I really, really deeply believe that. I don't want to represent myself. I want to represent everyone.
Well, it's the basis of the foundation of the title of this program. All politics is local. It's your local community, and every local community has what you just described. So, kudos to you. As politics has gotten divisive and it's gotten, some people might say corrupt and some people might say, not. It's refreshing to hear a candidate come back with those types, doing stuff on the local level and, building communities that people want to live in. So, what other different styles, is different than you? Senator Eldridge is more on the liberal side. He's been described by some people as, being even on the socialist extreme side of the Democrat Party. How would you describe your political style?
I feel like I'm a very, again, a collaborative, more of a centrist Republican that's just common sense, that wants to get things done, that's very willing to work across party lines to get things done.
Let's talk a little bit about that, not to interrupt you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because, if you are successful, you're going to be in the minority party.
Yep.
And you're going to have to work with the other side to get stuff done. And I think, just on a personal opinion, Governor Baker's done a phenomenal job with, stepping across the aisle. And he sometimes gets criticized by his own party because he is seen as too willing to work with the other side, which I don't understand that, right, or personally myself. But talk about how you'll do that. How will you get along with, the majority party when you're successful and go up to Beacon Hill?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer a slightly different question and then answer that one.
Sure.
And one is just that one of the things I bring to the table in coming to the Massachusetts State Senate, coming to the overall state legislature in Massachusetts, is that I bring a little bit of a different opinion. So overwhelmingly, the people that serve in the Massachusetts State Legislature are male, Democrat, and lawyers, right? That happens to also be what my opponent is. I bring a different perspective as a female, as a Republican, as somebody that has an MBA. Different kind of training, different kind of background, different political perspectives, all of those things. So I think that just having that fresh perspective on Beacon Hill will be enormously helpful because, again, diverse opinions, I think, come up with the best, most robust results. So I believe that I can offer something there. In terms of working people across the aisle, I've been doing it. I've been doing it in my town. I work very well with people of different political persuasions. Again, we work together, we find the common ground, we move forward. I have no problem with that. Many of my closest friends are liberal Democrats. That's fine. We can talk politics, we can not talk politics, we can get along. It's great, and I feel like those are the types of, having that example of that happening at the state level is so important for just everyone, right? So we can say, you know what, we can actually get along. We don't have to sort of distrust each other because we're of different political persuasions. And that, by the way, is something that's actually happening in the country right now. And a Harvard Business School professor has actually been doing research on this and has found that not only do we have, you know, as our level of trust has gone down in government overall, our level of trust in our fellow citizens has gone down. To me, that is devastating. And I think, frankly, is a result of our politicians' behavior, of purposely trying to divide us, you know, and name calling and being super inflammatory and all of that.
I mean, we're going to shut down the government this weekend. I mean, you know.
Exactly. It's all of
guys.
that kind of thing that divides us. And so as a result of that, we actually don't trust each other.
Right.
Now, I think social media comes into play with this type of thing as well. But to me, that's just heartbreaking that we can't trust each other, that we feel, you know, can I not be friends with someone that has a different political persuasion? Can I not be friends with someone that has a different religion than me? How sad is that? Do we really want to just be tribes and groups of people that are similar?
No,
you know,
we
it's
don't.
just sad to me.
Let's talk a little bit about the campaign, because here you are, you're running for United States Senate. You got a full-time job, married, 5 kids, and you're running a campaign for United States Senate in a big district against an incumbent candidate. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, I'm actually dialing back my job a little bit,
Okay.
so I have a little more capacity. So that's really great. My employer's been very flexible.
5 kids, that's a full-time job, period.
That is also a full-time job as well. I have a very supportive husband as well who helps out a lot. So we really share the household and child rearing duties, really 50-50, I would
Nice.
say, which is great. Wonderful husband. So I'm really excited about the campaign. I think we have a very viable campaign, really for 2 main reasons. One is that we have the professional knowledge and the know-how of how to go after the voters that we need. So we know that this district in 2014, when Charlie Baker was running previously, he won the state by 1.9 percentage points, a small margin. He won this district by 9 percentage points.
Okay.
So we know the votes are there, and he's obviously very popular now and will be running again. So we believe that the voters are there. We have to find them. We have to convey our message to them. So we have a sophisticated way of finding those voters that we think will be open to hearing our message, and then being able to get those voters to come out on election day. We'll be doing a lot of door knocking, we'll be doing a lot of phone banking, that sort of thing to get our message out. But we'll be able to do it. And the second reason I think we'll be successful is that we will be raising the money that we need to do all of that I just talked about. We have an
Takes a lot of money to run a.
It takes a lot of money.
Senate
We have an
campaign.
aggressive fundraising plan in place, and we're already have made a lot of headway already on that.
Let's talk about, you know, everything with social media nowadays, Facebook page, Twitter
Yes,
account.
absolutely. We have a Facebook page and a Twitter a handle, and we'll be doing all of that.
So we'll run that at the end of the program and put up those.
Oh,
So
great.
you've got a website?
Yep.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you got them all?
We don't have Instagram yet. We'll
Okay.
get Instagram,
Okay.
but yes.
So we'll be happy to run those at the end of the program.
Thank you.
But like you said, it's connecting with people. It's connecting with people. So you're busy every day. Door knocking, going to events, can be exhausting. Can be a lonely time on the campaign trail too. I mean, so how do you keep motivated?
Well, one thing about it is I love talking with people. It's actually, I'm very extroverted. I love going and meeting new people. So to me, that actually ends up being energizing. Some people, it's not. I know it's harder. My husband's an introvert. excuse me, for him, those types of activities are harder to do. For me, I really love it.
There you
So
go.
I have no problem doing that. But yeah, it's still busy. It's super, super, super busy. My kids are really supportive. They're going to be helping. They're going to be out with me on the campaign trail as much as they possibly can, so they
Nice.
can be involved in this. In some ways, they're not super tiny anymore. They're old enough that they can help and be really interested and excited about it. My husband will be helping. We've put together already a great team, not only with paid people, but also just really key volunteers that are willing to put a lot of time into that campaign, and we'll be continuing to recruit people that'll be willing to help us. So, it's not going to be just all about me doing all the work. We want to involve a lot of people because, frankly, even if I had the capacity to do all the work, that doesn't work well, right? You need to have lots of people involved, get them engaged, bring them into the process, and that's how you win the race.
Good. So it's got to be an exciting time. If people want to get involved in the campaign, what's the best way to do it? Go to your website? Go
Website. There's a Busse4Senate.com, Busse, the number 4Senate.com, and there is a button there you can click on how to get involved. There's a variety of different things you can do to help us out. We'd love to have people help us out.
I'd say it for any candidate on any part of the party, no donation is too small, no afternoon of making phone calls or knocking on doors is too small. If you can only help for 2 hours, but it makes a difference in any campaign.
It really does.
And if you can only afford to send $10 to a candidate you like, $10 adds up. It adds up if you get enough people to do it.
You know what? And in some ways, I appreciate the smallest donations because I often know that those ones might have been the hardest to give.
Come from
And
the heart,
that makes me, that really touches me when I get those kind of donations. It really does. So I appreciate those kind of donations. I appreciate any donation. I appreciate anyone that's spending time, and it makes me want to make sure that I'm the best candidate that I can possibly be. For everyone that's helping me. It's almost like if I were funding it all myself and I were doing all the work, then I'm just accountable to myself. But if I have all these people that are donating, if all these people that are donating their time, their money, their effort, their skills, and then I don't try to run the best campaign I can, then I'm accountable to them.
Sure, absolutely.
So
We never have enough time here on All Politics is Local, so you've got 30 seconds. Look into the camera and tell people why they should vote for you for Massachusetts State Senate.
Okay. I would love to have your vote for Massachusetts State Senate. I feel like I'm the common sense candidate that really cares about the issues, the things that matter in your lives, making sure we have good jobs with high paychecks, making sure our schools stay strong and are excellent for your children, and making sure our communities stay vibrant and safe. Those are the things I think people care about. Those are the things that I think are common sense that we want to be advocating for. And again, I have the skill set and the educational experience to really be able to make this work for voters in this district. And I look forward to serving as your state senator.
That's Margaret Busse. She's running for Massachusetts State Senate. I'm Jon Fetherston. Thanks for watching All Politics is Local.